Well, welcome into another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, S.J. Munoz with you once again to talk the world of sports and wagering and have some fun with you along the way. And S.J., it's been actually a lot of stuff going on here recently just because there's been some other things outside of the actual competition. Had the NFL draft here this past weekend, and then also, of course, playoffs have been ramping up into both the NBA and NHL. Had some fights here over the weekend also. There's just kind of been a lot going on. We're getting ready for Derby week here next week, so lots of action, lots of things to talk about.
Yeah, maybe it's not the typical, the football heavy schedule. You're used to 1 day a week type thing. Get ready for your Saturday and your Sundays are ready to roll there. But still, like you said, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of interesting things, and got some playoffs continue to roll on. So hope we give you some good covers here this week.
If you've been following along with us on social media, we've been throwing out some picks for you here and there throughout the week. So on Twitter, it's at SJMBets, at CherokeeCP, and we'll put stuff out there as we kind of see it here throughout the week. So you want to follow along there. And, of course, if you have a thought or suggestion on something, let us know or tag us in it, and we'd be happy to take a peek at that also. As we get going, though, we always talk about what we're pouring down our gullet as well to make us have the courage to make those wagers. And
don't forget about the wagers in some cases.
Yeah, sometimes you got to calm the nerves. Not too bad this time of year, but I pulled one out of the kind of the classic, well-known case, I guess. This week, went back. I saw this and it was on a nice little sale at the old Hy-Vee Wine and Spirits. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna take advantage of that. The old Blue Moon, just the classic Blue Moon. They're trying to, I don't know, maybe get some of it out of the case. I don't know what the deal was, but it was a couple bucks off. I'm like, heck yeah, I'll pour a few of those down. It's been a while, so that's what I'm going with. I've got another one sitting here with me as well. This is one I've pimped before, but the old Confluence Des Moines IPA. So I've got that one sitting there too. If I need a backup beer here during the pod, I always got to make sure you're ready to go. But what do you got going on over there?
Yeah, speaking of Blue Moon, I saw they have like a light, not the Sky one, but there's some other one they put out that I'm interested to try that. So that just reminded me of that. I don't know if you had given that a try yet or not. I knew you used to be a pretty strong Blue Moon guy there back in the day. So just be light, Blue Moon light, something like that. But everyone's doing those. I guess the knockoff of the Mick Ultra, kind of like the easy drinker. So I did see that a while back. I thought about might do that one day, but I'm going back to my friends in Martin City, which basically southern edge of the metro area here on the Missouri side, at least Kansas City. And I got the citrus wheat ale. I actually haven't tried this yet, but pretty decent. Still very tasty. But I don't get a ton of the citrus, but it's real good. And a 5.5% on a pretty easy drinker. I can't be mad at that. So we're doing pretty good over here at the citrus wheat ale from Martin City.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good. It's pretty much exactly what that Blue Moon Light that you're talking about is kind of marketed as. I did see that, and I actually had read something about that recently too. They kind of because they had that Sky for a while, and that was kind of their take on a light, and it was supposed to be more of a tangerine type flavor going on. This is basically the rebranding of that, so they've changed it into Blue Moon Light, and I think they changed the recipe a little bit too. So yeah, I am interested to try it because I had the Sky before, and it was all right. I mean, it was nothing that excited me, but I drink them. So yeah, this one could be interesting.
That's not saying a lot sometimes, though.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
I'm with you. I'm putting myself in that group too. There's not a lot I won't drink, but when something's really good, it kind of puts it up to that next level, I guess.
Yeah, get me in the right setting, and unfortunately, I might drink too many or whatever.
I regret it later, but in the moment, it all sounds good.
Yep, no doubt. All right, so that's what we're drinking down here as we do the pod here with you this week. We've got a few different topics we wanted to kind of highlight, and first off and foremost was a big event here this past weekend. Of course, a lot of folks look forward to this if they're kind of hankering for football news of some sort, is the NFL draft. And, of course, all teams looking to try to improve their lot in life. The way it's supposed to work is the worst teams get the best opportunity to get the best players coming out of the college ranks to improve themselves the next year, and whether or not teams make that decision is always up for debate after it's all said and done. But it was a little bit interesting the way it played out in that first round there in Detroit, because I think a lot of people thought a few of the guys that would go early did, and that was normal. But then it definitely went quarterback heavy, very heavy early on, and a couple of them that were kind of head scratchers and really made people start to think, what's the decision making going on with these GMs? And it certainly seems like, it's become such a hot topic position. Everybody knows you need a good quarterback to win in the NFL, but it's almost like these teams are just reaching just to see, hey, maybe we'll get that next guy, and they're just trying it for the hell of it.
Yeah, the thing to me is it's like how often and I'm not saying the talent's not there, especially this year. It seemed like there was some really good quarterbacks, and a couple of them I think actually could end up being having a pretty decent career. That maybe in a tough situation, but probably good enough to overcome that. Maybe not their first stop, but maybe if they get sign with a free agent later on or get traded, maybe end up having a good career later on. But it does seem like a bit of a reach in a lot of these instances, especially when you look at, I mean, even not even just your starter, but look at the Falcons taking Penix when you just signed Cousins to that big fat contract, and it seemed to me. I mean, I don't pay attention. I don't worship at the cult of the NFL like a lot of football fans do, but it did seem like a lot of the pandering or whatever you're gonna call it, kind of the mind games paid off this year, and it seems like a lot of teams were able to get other teams to kind of pick so that the player they wanted landed in their lap. They might say they really wanted this guy when the guy they wanted was taken. Of course, you're never gonna get the whole 100% truth from the GMs and agents and that sort of individual. I wouldn't exactly describe as honest. That many quarterbacks get picked, and what the top 10, 12 picks, and how many are going to still be in the league here 3 years down the road. It's just
a lot of teams certainly kind of reaching for those guys and trying to see if they can hit it big for sure. The Penix thing was certainly a huge head scratcher. A lot of people were just like, they were of course relating it to the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love thing and blah, 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 make that kind of decision. But that's totally different in my mind because he was already there and established. Rodgers, you knew he wasn't going to be playing that much longer.
You're the guy in waiting. You're trying to get somebody ready to take reins when it's his turn.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The other one I think a lot of people were kind of questioning maybe was the Bo Nix at Denver thing. That was a little bit maybe of a reach. I think he's a decent player, and who knows, maybe he turns out to be just fine for them. But I think a lot of people thought that was maybe too high to make that selection. And you could say that probably a number of those guys that went that early on round, that first round. But I guess, if that's the way you want to go, you want to waste that money and, we'll wait for the guy, that you actually maybe are going to play next year in a later round and it works out, whatever. I guess we're just kind of flipping roles on when we're taking these guys now, it seems like.
Yeah, you want to talk about a gamble. This draft thing's a hell of a gamble in most cases. Not even just the quarterbacks, though, but I mostly only caught like bits and pieces here and there. Like I said, I wasn't totally invested, but just the Raiders going with another tight end when they just drafted one the year before. It's like, oh, what are we doing here? We're gonna. How often is the way it's with copycat league that it is? How often you have two tight ends on the field? I mean, maybe they're going a different route and they're going to go crazy old school. Two tight end sets. Maybe that's their plan. So if that's the case, then they're that makes sense. If not, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So just things like that, and just I don't know, kind of seemed like it went a wide receiver heavy to a lot of teams that don't necessarily have a solid or even stable quarterback situation when maybe they're the ones that could have went there. So it's always I don't know, kind of for debate, but one of the most enjoyable things for me is, as far as picks wise, is kind of going back after the fact. That's why I like it, to see like what Kuiper and the experts were saying, the GMs, what the coaches, the ratings, how they thought of them coming out of the combine, drafted, and how their careers end up playing out. I think that's more interesting to me because in the end, it is all a gamble.
Yeah,
there's so many factors and variables that go into it, but as far as like the presentation itself, I guess I could just roll into this now. There's a couple of things that just that doesn't really get my attention for very long. It just how long since the season ends till the draft starts, 2.5, maybe even 3 months, I guess, for some teams. And it takes you still 15 minutes to decide who you're going to pick. I understand maybe somebody gets picked that you thought, but shouldn't you have a couple, 3 backup players there? I mean, I know the Vikings missed the clock, years ago? But other than that, not many teams are, kind of sitting there with their, kind of heads up their butts type thing. They know who they're going to pick. So just the dramatization of it doesn't really – I'm like, let's roll through these. I mean, if we can do a fantasy draft in an hour, let's get this NFL draft picked up a little bit. But other than that, the crowd was obviously kind of impressive too. Just that many people was a little bit surprising. When people oftentimes are kind of crapping on Detroit, it was nice to see maybe some feel good stuff for that city, and even, especially after the season that the Lions had, it seems like maybe some good energy in that area these days, at least football wise.
Yeah, that is true. Certainly with the dramatization stuff, it gets old. I mean, that first round takes at least 3 times as long as it should.
Like 30 picks in like 3 hours. Like, come on, like, Jesus.
I mean, I realize this is a made-for-TV event, but come on, we don't have to build it up that much for the ESPN folk. They can get it in a little bit shorter time frame. Maybe they put 3 guys up at the table instead of 6 or whatever. They got yapping about this.
Well, and the funny thing too is like the first round takes so long, but once they get towards the end, it's like pick is in. Like, why couldn't they have done this the whole weekend? Like, all of a sudden they just figured it out. It took them a day and a half.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and what's funny is you think the later days it would be harder. Like, this is when you're splitting hairs. Yeah.
People that you want, maybe some guys you're drafting you didn't really take a good look at. You're just kind of down to the bones of it. So
yeah. Weird. I don't know. It's definitely interesting. That first one should be.
Is the fans that show up. They're just. I mean, no matter what, they're just. I mean, basically, it's like whatever. Jet select and insert name, and then just like. Just cheering. It's like who is this guy? Like, they don't know. Get him enough, Bud Light or whatever the official beer of the NFL is, and it don't matter who it is, they're having a good time. But I mean, I was glad to be able to, like, last year when it was in Kansas City. Of course, I had to get down there and check it out, and it is kind of, I mean, just to be there one time and say you went to an NFL draft. So I'm not saying the event's not cool and all that. It's just a lot of extra stuff that's crap, but. I don't know. It's kind of. I almost more laugh at anything. It's not anything that pisses me off. I just keep the little on my phone. Just follow tracker. Get the draft tracker going. But too much more than maybe the first 4 or 5 picks, just because I'm not that much of an NFL fiend where I got to hear every single detail about some guy or whatever 40 times. Shuttle run, hand size. Like, it's kind of creepy after a while.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know what team it was, but I did see that they panned to a group of fans, and this guy was like decked out in his gear or whatever, and you could tell that this guy had started a long time ago on the having fun that night, and he was just like glazed over. Like, I don't even know if he knew who the pick was, but he was like, yeah.
You've been drinking since last year's draft.
No kidding. I don't know. He started real early. It was funny though. It is funny to watch those guys. And of course, they have a little bit of fun with it with some of the guys that come up to make the picks and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and of course, you got to experience that last year with all the other stuff that goes on around it. There's lots of stuff for the kids to get interactive stuff to do. There's different things to visit and see, and that's probably what makes it fun for folks that are going there, because overall, like for me. It's like, okay, yeah, if I'm there at the beginning for like an hour, like, this is cool, but at some point it's kind of like, what the hell are we doing? We're just all standing around here like watching a screen, like, and it's the same thing over and over again. I mean, I don't know how much fun that is at some point, but certainly a lot of people like to do it.
Yeah, when we're with kids, it's a little different. So the goal was to make it to the first pick. That was the whole goal, and of course we had to get down there fairly early, beat the crowd and all that. And there's a lot of stuff for kids and activities. But the thing that kind of, I guess, affected our experience was there's quite a few adults doing kids type of activity. So it got to be like, I was like, come on, bro. Like, you really need to stand in line for 20 minutes to field goal. It's like we were in line because, getting the kids through, and I wasn't going to kick. I was let them kick, and then they wanted me to, but I was like, dude, this is for kids, So I was trying to tell the boys, like, this isn't for me. It's for kids. I guess that memo didn't get passed to all the adults in there, but I guess humorous more than anything, but a little bit odd to see so many grown men trying to do these little these little games that are definitely made for kids when it can barely fit in the bouncy house or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. It might need another extra bouncy house just to throw some of these guys in and lock them up for a while.
Yeah, maybe that was the plan. We got them in one spot so we can swarm when we need to.
It is interesting, and like you said, the crowd incredible. They said the estimates were around 775,000 people for the weekend that visited, and it sounded like the first night they were pretty much encouraging people to like turn around and go away, like because they just didn't have the capacity anymore to hold them. So yeah, that's impressive, and it's cool when a city gets behind it like that, and like you said, a place like that needs a little positive energy in Detroit. They did well, and it looked nice. The setup looked pretty cool, so hats off to them and everybody that made that happen. I guess it's going to be in Green Bay next year, I discovered recently, which is also interesting.
I assume they'll have a pretty good crowd, I would think. That's a pretty fervent fan base there. Where it may be, though, I'm not that familiar with the city, and I know it's a bit of a smaller city compared to most NFL markets, so it'll be – I mean, will they just do it at Lambeau? I assume maybe.
Yeah, that's what they said, yeah. Yeah. And I don't know whether that's outside. I assume it's outside. You can't really do it inside the stadium,
you would think, yeah.
But yeah, interesting. Weather could be a factor.
yeah. That's the one thing about these outdoor. It's of course where the player walks up and with Goodell and everyone like announced the pick is covered. But other than that, it's mostly an outdoor thing. At least the ones I've seen or the one I went to. Like so, yeah, you don't know what you're gonna get. The snow's not out of the question when you're getting that far north this time of year.
We'll see. Yeah, a little sleet while the picks come in. That'd be good. It is cool, though, that they've decided to do this, too, because, we're used to back in the day where it was always Radio City Music Hall or it was a standard place and never moved. But they've started to get beyond that and get some of these cities some love, which is the right thing to do, get some of these fan bases involved. So that was pretty cool. We kind of talked about, I guess, some of the biggest takeaways. And yeah, even for me, like that first round, like, of course, I wanted to see who Kansas City was going to take, but it was like, I'm going to bed. Like, I ain't waiting for this nonsense.
You'll find out in the morning.
I woke up and I found out that one of our rivals traded us a pick so we could get the guy we wanted. I'm like, all right, that sounds great to me. I don't know what's going on, but it worked out pretty well for them, I think. We'll find out. But interesting. And it's interesting how some of those deals go down, during the draft. And I'm sure there's lots more behind it than we as general fans ever understand or know about. But it is an interesting process for sure. And of course, whether or not you're a winner or loser is sometimes pretty much luck, I think, too, at the same time, because we all know that when it comes to picking guys or recruiting guys or whatever it may be, you might think you know what you have on your hands, and it doesn't always work out that way. So definitely changes over time. That's kind of what we had on the NFL draft slate there. Of course, NBA, NHL playoffs continue to roll on. There's been some interesting games here recently, some good competition, which is nice to see. I've been kind of having a casual eye on both. I wouldn't say that I've gotten like wholeheartedly into each sport, and they're not kind of the ones that are my overall huge loves, and when my team's not involved, that makes it worse too, I suppose. But there has been some good stuff. I really enjoyed watching the other night. There was one of those games in the Florida Tampa series in the NHL playoffs where the goalies were just going berserk and making some ridiculous saves. So that's always fun to watch when those guys get on a heater. Sometimes it can be pretty cool. And then in the NBA, I noticed, of course, there was a great finish the other night with Tyrese Halliburton there in the game against the Bucks in overtime with that floater to win it. Those are the kind of moments, that people look forward to and want to see when it comes postseason time. And we've gotten a handful of them here so far.
Yeah, I think the access, like we talked about last time, has been pretty good too, as far as the games being on TV, and that's kind of been the norm as of late. But yes, maybe a couple teams, especially when you mentioned the NBA last there, the couple of teams that I guess maybe you consider an upset when you look at the names, but also like within the Pacers Bucks case, of course they're not, Bucks aren't at full strength, but that's the breaks of the game. So Pacers don't have to apologize for anything. And one series that's kind of really caught me by surprise was how that Cleveland-Orlando series has really turned. Cleveland looked to be in control, and then all of a sudden the Magic found some magic and kind of whooping their ass now. So I'm keeping a close eye on that one. Of course, Lakers are holding on for dear life. Honestly, if you look at that series, they should be 2-2, maybe even 3-1 LA. They really pissed a couple games away. So that's been kind of tough to deal with there. But that's been a pretty good series, though, despite the 3-1 standing right now. There's been some pretty good games, but overall, I think good start to the playoffs. I'm to see how far Minnesota can go, and even that Thunder Pelican series has been pretty competitive as well. At least back and forth. Maybe there's been a couple blowouts, but I mean, as far as not one team winning, so one-sided as a series.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the Lakers. I just happened to notice there was a story. I guess somebody had plopped down like a $15,000 bet last night on the Lakers to win the NBA title, which he, of course, was going to.
They wake up from a coma, or like come on, man! Like even as someone that's I guess you'd call yourself a fan of the team. I'm like, there's no way in hell. Like, what are you doing? Was it Porter's brother? Is he back? Does he have another alias? Like, come on, dude.
We got to get into LeBron's phone and see what's going on here. Yeah. And of course, they said it was going to pay out, like $1.5 million or something. If the guy wins it, it's like just crazy. The shit people come up with and do, it just is wild. Of course, and then of course they won to keep themselves alive at least. So I guess
not dead. Yeah, he's sweating it out. Yeah. No, there was gosh, I wish I should have saved this because it wasn't that bad, but it was can't remember if it was a fight or if it was a game, but basically that doesn't really matter what they were betting on. But somebody basically wagered like $100,000 to win $5,000. It's like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, just stop. I mean, obviously, if you have $100,000 wager, hopefully you're not hurting for money because you have plenty to just throw around. But at the same time, it just seems kind of pointless. Like, I guess you can say you won the bet, but obviously it wasn't like a long shot by any means when you're only getting that type of return on your bet. It was just kind of like one of those, like, there wasn't anybody that I saw that like was taught. It was like DraftKings or FanDuel or one of the big companies that was like kind of saying I better just bet this. But if it was somebody that was actually like an actual person that made the bet and they were calling about, that's someone I'm blocking right away. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Like that's not gambling. That's just, I don't know.
There's a risk reward kind of line there. And I guess, I mean, you sure it's your whatever percent return that you would have gotten your mutual fund or whatever, but but not near as much of a guarantee. But that's just that's nuts. Don't do that stuff, folks. You see that once in a while. Of course, with a guy like Mattress Mac, he's got something going on behind the scenes, so he's making his money one way or another. This isn't, don't do the stupid thing where you're.
I don't know the guy. I don't know his financials or nothing, but I'm guessing there's some type of writing off involved with somebody like that. That would just be my inkling. I'm not making any accusations, but to be betting those amounts, even with that type of bankroll you're talking with, there's something else going on. So don't be that guy. Don't do that. That's the type of gambling that gets you in some deep trouble there.
Yeah. So obviously, if you follow the sports, you kind of know what's going on in these series. So I don't really want to get all into that and recap everything for you. But I did want to mention too. I haven't watched a ton of games, but I did sit down and watch a little bit the other day of that Celtics Heat game that was going on yesterday, and I found myself sitting there. And I texted my buddy who is a big Celtics fan, and it was just like, why is your team so damn boring, man? Like, like this is boring. Like they're just so good that it's like,
and that type of record too. It's just like you would think it'd be like something like. Usually when a team's kind of like that, when you look at the numbers, they've won that many games. It's like I got to see this. Like when Golden State was kind of going through their run there of just beating, breaking the Bulls record and doing all that type of stuff like that. It was exciting to watch and kind of got the attention of even like non-traditional basketball fans, or everybody kind of had to see it type of thing. Like they aren't exactly fun to watch, and a lot of times, honestly, if they're not winning, like boring, that they end up like losing kind of ugly too. It doesn't happen often, but when they do, you're right about that. And it's hard to pinpoint it because I know a couple of Celtics fans, unfortunately, and they're even kind of a little bit leery, at least the ones I've talked to, just about how far the team can go. And that sounds weird with being the number one seed in the East and having, I mean, they obviously have have talent on the team, but it's an interesting mix of individuals. It's not exactly maybe your typical kind of NBA playoff roster. It's very guard heavy, and kind of 3-point game is big for them as well. So if you have an off night, it could be ugly when you don't really have an inside presence. When Porzingis is kind of your quote unquote center big man, and he's living out the top of the key, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in his response, it actually made a lot of sense to me too when he said it, because obviously I'd just been sitting there watching him play. But he goes, "Yeah," he's like, "It's because they shoot so well. I mean, they just shoot well, and then there's not much diversity on the way that they score. Like it's a lot of times they're making shots. They get an open shot, they make it. That's kind of who they are, and which is great. I mean, that's the point of the game. I mean." Me myself, that's the only thing I'm good at when I'm playing is I can shoot a little bit, and that's what's fun about it. But yeah, it's interesting, I guess, when you sit there and you're like watching a team win. And of course, any game that's a blowout is never entertaining to whatever.
Unless it's your team, yeah. But even then, you're like, yeah, let's just get out of here without any injuries. And you're not, But or you got the overs.
Yeah. But yeah, the Heat were just not putting up any sort of a fight, and it was just it was not that much fun to watch. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There was one of the commentators in the game too, and I thought he was getting a little bit over his skis. He'd made a comment that, well, Boston, they really just don't have any weaknesses. And I'm thinking, don't go there, man. Yeah. Like that's getting a little bit crazy here. And I think what you said is exactly what it is. Like if you have a bad shooting night once, then maybe it's a problem. So it'd be interesting to see how far they go, though. Obviously,
well, they're that roster, like I said, they don't have a deep bench. So an injury, of course, any injury to anybody's top player is going to significantly hurt them. But I think they're more at that level where if a Tatum or a Brown goes down, they're in a lot bigger trouble than maybe some of these other teams that could at least hang on for a little bit or overcome. Because even though I mentioned the Bucks aren't full strength, they're going down to the wire with the Pacers still, even without Giannis. So they're right. I mean, they're down, but it's a hard fought series. It's not like they're just getting waxed since he's been gone.
Yeah, true. Of course, Lakers Nuggets has been interesting just because those two teams get a lot of attention for obvious reasons, fan base wise and recent championship wise. And then I do think it's interesting too. You mentioned this series. A lot of people have pointed to the fact, and I think it is very true, just the way that the Thunder play. They're a team that moves the ball a lot, shares it a lot, and they always seem to be making that extra pass. And some people love that kind of basketball. And it certainly, if you are into that, that's a team to go pay attention to because they certainly have kind of that mentality, and that's what's made them successful, I think, because they don't really have a lot of those standout, put you on your back type of guys. So you gotta kind of play that way. They've got good enough players, but it's been fun to watch them, I think. And the other thing too, I guess, bringing them up, I wanted to bring this up because I thought it was funny the other night. They made a big deal about how they were getting ready to do the post-game interview with Allie LaForce on TNT, and then they walked away from her and went to do the local Bally TV interview.
Oh yeah, instead. I loved it. As a guy for most of my career being a more of a smaller outlet, smaller entity type guy, like those are the moments that you just lived for. Like you'd go to a big event, or if we're covering high school stuff, or a state tournament, or in the NAIA levels, a national tournament, and the kids that remembered you, the coaches, they would come to you first. That was kind of just like the ultimate FU to the Johnny come lately, big market. So that was amazing. I did love that.
Yeah, it's funny. And of course, when you get to that point, those networks have, stupid contracts, force things to happen, and that's the way it goes. We've seen that forever with ESPN or whoever happens to have the Super Bowl that year. They get the first crack at everything. But yeah, funny that they did that, and it was kind of, obviously it's hard. I feel bad for her at the same time because she didn't know how to handle it, but she was just like, oh, why do we have to wait? What do we? She's like, oh, I'm gonna go see what's going on over here. But yeah, it's cool. It
definitely wasn't anything personal to her, but it was, she was just working for the, the big entity. So I guess she kind of was just collateral damage. But at the same time, it was amazing to see, and I did appreciate that.
Yeah, that is cool. Cool when you see that, and you see those, like you said, the guys that maybe have a little bit of a connection, to those people, and they've been there with them throughout the season. You kind of feel like you're a part of it when you get involved in it that big. I know that's how I always was, covering a team that made a big, deep run. You kind of get a little bit attached to yourself, so it's nice to be part of that moment with them for sure.
Well, and you look at those two, especially the teams like that. They're as far as professional franchise towns, they're smaller markets, and it's kind
Hmm.
of the only show in town type of thing. So I know New Orleans has some other obviously pro sports and NFL, but still, like it's more that you would have that kind of bond or feel at least with your local, day in day out reporters. So that's at least they kept it going and kind of as you and as you want to say, kept it real for once instead of kind of just the hot flavor of the day or whatever you call
Yeah,
it.
yeah, in which I think hopefully we'll see. And that's been a problem. Like on every level, every sports is being able to continue to have that access for local.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know if any of these regional sports networks were even going to exist here like 6 months ago. So, we hope that kind of thing continues because I think it's important. We went through here just as from a local perspective. There's an entity that ended up getting a hold of the rights to like the postseason championship stuff for the boys, and then it became an argument, between the local entities and them on who had access, who had to pay for what. It's a mess. So I think that it's important to have those guys that are there all year long and give them that chance at the end of the day too to be there and be part of that. So that was cool to see on a bigger level. Something that got a lot of attention for sure. Another topic that we wanted to touch on was something that's kind of become obviously a big talking point in the college football world. We've seen the whole NIL landscape continue to evolve and change, and the way that we recruit players or the way that you obtain players is totally different now than it was even 6 months ago. I guess we should start with first off, because we talked about the NFL draft earlier. Apparently, Nick Saban had a little slip there on the broadcast, talking about his own personal situation.
Yeah, it's interesting how the truth eventually always comes out, I guess, if you listen close enough. But long story short, basically kind of admitted to. The popular is tampering when it comes to these transfer portal. I think that's a little bit extreme. I don't know. It sounds like it's not that serious to me, but it's obviously goes against what the rules and regulations are. So for someone that kind of position themselves as kind of the upstanding individual and didn't need the was crap, and we want the players that are going to be here to outright admit on a nationally televised show that he was basically going after was the Toledo. Was it cornerback?
Quinion
Mitchell, that got first round draft pick. So and he kind of said we were trying to get him to Alabama. Going on and on about it. So maybe there's more. That's more of the reason why he ended up leaving. Then he was just tired. He couldn't play the game. Couldn't with the truth finally comes out. It wasn't his world. He's kind of the game passed him by, so to speak. But not to diminish anything he did. But this wasn't for him. That type of a landscape in the game he was coaching in. So, but it was just more of like it's saying, just funny to me. Like I don't get with want to get your pound of flesh type thing. I don't care. Broke the rules, whatever. But it was very interesting to hear that when somebody that really considered themselves like above everything, above board. I don't care about all this other coaches cheating and everything, and you're literally doing the same thing, which everybody knew you were. You just didn't want to admit it until you're with your ESPN buddies and forgot you were on TV. Just thought you were chatting over a glass of moonshine or whiskey or whatever you like to drink, a couple of oatmeal cream pies, whatever you're sipping on there.
Yeah. Wonder how many oatmeal cream pies we went through during draft. Obviously, that was kind of the joke from the get-go with him was, you didn't mind when this was all quiet and under the radar, and then as soon as it was out there and Texas A&M went bananas and started paying everybody with whatever sports car they wanted, then you like, oh, well, they're doing that. You've been doing it for ages, bro.
Right,
that's how it works. But it's funny to say that outright, and of course that's part of this whole deal and problem is what is the proper way to go about this? How should teams be able to communicate with players? Should there be maybe certain windows at the end of a season where you can communicate with a guy who's on a team even though he's there and hasn't necessarily entered his name into the portal yet? Because that's the issue. Obviously, when they do enter their name into the portal, and then they signed with another team within 2 hours, we know what happened. Like they were talking to him anyway. So let's make it, let's create some windows where this is okay, and then I think everybody will be on board with that. If we all know the same rules, then we can follow them. But that's something that recently the man running your program that you follow, Matt Rule, has kind of brought up and been very open about here recently, is that, hey, the players are pretty much telling me what's going on. Like they will show me that this team was trying to contact them in the middle of the season and say, hey, get in the portal, come to us. So you're just kind of putting it out there in the open that this is really what is happening. Let's find a way to make this better. And obviously, for certain coaches, it seems like in his case, he's trying to create a little bit of an atmosphere of maybe I don't want some of those guys either. The guys that are always looking, always wanting to be somewhere else. Like, do you really want to be here or not, kind of thing. Let's set that standard from the get-go. And maybe eventually that will calm down for some teams too. But certainly interesting that he's kind of has been very forthright with it.
It's kind of one of those things when just even just like, because you're an educator, you're a teacher, leader of men as a coach, so it's kind of like, who are the adults in the room is what you kind of would go back to, at least in my mind. And just, if you set standards, kids are going to go by to them. I know they're paying them a lot of money and make a lot of stuff, but they're still kids. I have this conversation fairly often with just coworkers, or just, talking with my wife, or just like in general, normal conversations. Like, kids are going to do whatever the hell you let them do. Adults are going to do what you let them do. If someone tells me I don't have to go to work and I'm still going to get paid and make money, you think I'm going to go to work the next day? 10 times 10, and it's not, we always want to blame the kids. And I think that was part of, of Rule's kind of comment there, is that it's not the kids here. It's the adults that are kind of screwing up and making the situation the way it is. They're going to do what you allow them to do. And if someone's throwing these, bags of cash at you, what would you do when you're 18 or 19 or 20 or whatever? I mean, now someone throws me a bag of cash, I'm taking it. Like, I just, we have too much of a fantasy of what, we were the perfect individual and, we never did anything wrong. And I don't know. Honesty, I think, goes a long ways. Like, of course you want to do the best and be the best you can, but we all have shortcomings and kind of mistakes we made in the past, and, things you regret. So let's just admit that that's part of life. Try not to do it again and just move forward. So I think that was a lot of the message as well from his comments, as well, at least what I took from it. And I don't know, it was kind of the timing of it. I mean, it was, when you look at it, coincidental, I suppose, but it also was kind of made it all make sense there too. Was, have one day, a coach saying, I don't care about that, and I've never done that. And then, he's saying he actually did it in the past. And another coach kind of saying, well, this is where we're at now in the state of college football. So I guess that kind of just, kind of sums it all up there within about a week's time or so.
yeah. Proof in the news cycle for sure. We all kind of want to, especially as college fans, like, we always kind of have this illusion that, we feel like these kids are so enthralled in the university and they have the same kind of vigor and passion about it that we had, just because we grew up with that love, or we grew up with going to that school, perhaps even, to that extent. Your attachment probably more often than not maybe is a little bit more than theirs, especially at the beginning when it's a kid that just came into school. Like, yeah, he's going to build that over time. He's going to have that love for a place that treats him well. But yeah, when he's a freshman coming in, like, yeah, he thought it looked cool and this was a nice place to go. I like the guys, like, kind of thing. Like, they're not that attached as we feel like they are. So we want to make it out to be this, like, grandeur of, up and up and loyalty kind of thing, whereas it's probably not close to what we're imagining.
Well, when you talk about big time athletics, the goal is obviously not everybody's going to make it. We know that, thanks to the enterprise rental commercials that don't everybody go pro in sports, but your goal is to make it there, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, volleyball, on down the line. So I mean, when you're picking a school, likely it's going to give you the best opportunity to do that. Of course, like you said, the where it's at might play into that. The type of academics and what they offer, that maybe that's a major that you want, that might play in, or the team success is going to play in as well. But in the long run, it's probably, especially someone that's a big time recruit who's going to get me to the next level. That's kind of the thing going. And then when you get there, like you said, you build that kind of connection as you get through. But then you have a bad game, and first thing everybody, the fans are doing is saying you're a dumbass and fuck you and leave town and all this stuff. So that's all you get in your messages, your inbox. So it would be hard to be like, oh yeah, this. I just want to stay here. Someone else is saying, come here and makes a little bit more money and play here. So that it all goes together. But it's hard to kind of take that, out, or that see the big picture, like in the moment, or even just as a fan. That's this, I think, sometimes is seeing it from all sides and not just from your perspective.
Yeah, and I think it does make it. This whole landscape does make it more difficult for a coach that is, kind of what we want to see in an individual that's a leader of men. Somebody that is more upstanding. It's probably harder for them now because there's others that don't care. They're just going to do it because they want to win and maybe don't follow some of those principles. I did think it was interesting. I saw from Iowa State, TJ Tampa the other day, who got selected in the 4th round. They asked him kind of about his, college journey, and he made comment that, yeah, I had, opportunities to go elsewhere, and I could have done that. But at the end of the day, I felt like they were always true to me, and I was going to give that back. They lived up to the word on what they said they were going to do for me as far as preparing me to be in this moment, to maybe get to the next level, giving me the opportunities on the field, and it happened. I know that's not how it's going to work out, because, obviously coaches are going to say that to a lot of guys, and then eventually maybe they don't feel like they're the best ones to be on the field either. So it's never going to be perfect, but I eventually, this is starting to come around. I think eventually that you are finding those guys that still see value in some of the guys, the coaches or staffs that are a little bit more honest and a little bit more forthright with you, and maybe you'll see some of those teams still continue to have success. Like what Rule, I think, is kind of alluding to what he's trying to do, and what we've seen with Campbell at Iowa State. It seems kind of he's been the same kind of guy the whole time. So it'll be interesting going forward how that changes, and of course how the other rules change around it to make that easier to do. I think at the end of the day, if you're ultimately going to want people to be absolutely held to words, then there's going to have to be some sort of contract situation involved, and that's what it's going to come to. You're going to sign for a certain time, and then it's just going to become free agency like it is in the NFL, and a team's going to pay to make you leave, or whatever the case may be. That ultimately, that's probably the only thing that solves that issue ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and then of course there's going to be something wrong with that. So it's like you're not wrong though. I'm with you. There needs to be like some more guidelines, and it was almost just like the point where they're just like figure it out, like
yeah.
I don't know, it's kind of tough when you're dealing with that amount of money, but they'll adjust, and it'll be couple, maybe another year or so of that, and then I don't know. The next thing is the super conferences, I guess, when those organize, when if that's really going to happen, then they'll maybe have some guidelines for that. So
yeah,
we'll just go day by day, I suppose, is the best way to do it at this point.
I think the only good news at the end of the day for like the whole like can a team, stockpile guys kind of thing, we haven't seen that happen, and I think that just the simple fact that there's so many players that are capable out there in the world anymore of going to a team and playing well. Sports is a big deal in this country. A lot of people are involved, so I think you can always find guys that maybe are maybe under the radar compared to others. So hopefully that keeps it interesting, because ultimately at the end of the day, we all want to see good competition. We don't want to see one or two teams kicking everybody's ass all the time, and that's never fun. So.
Well, and you still only have, one football or one basketball or whatever the case may be, and then so many snaps or plays per game. So, you can get stockpile as much talent as you want, but there's only so much playing time and accolades to go around. So once that, that kind of plays into the whole thing as well.
Yeah, figure that out at the end of the day. So that's interesting. We'll keep watching that whole story, and obviously there's going to be much more as far as the regulation side of it is concerned here down the road. One other thing I did want to bring up as far as the college football front that I thought was, or I had a good chuckle about when I saw this the other day, was, of course, we had the last year was the wild year of Coach Prime. We had to hear about that every weekend. And lo and behold, they didn't have many. Yeah, lo and behold, not many people showed up for the spring game this year. That's weird. Like what? It's almost like hype and winning are the only things people care about.
Yeah, the most hilarious thing about that is just like one of those things where it's like can't say anything bad about them even when they do fail. That's kind of the annoying thing is like there's no criticism that's allowed for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Other teams can, it's fair game, but for Colorado, or I guess I should say for Dion, he's immune to it. But that was amazing to see that side by side of and honest, just as someone that's, of course you have experience with your team playing against them too. You knew it wasn't anything that was going to last. They don't care about anything except for maybe like some ditch weed or having not bathing regularly. That's the only thing they really care about in that area. So it wasn't going to last. Once the first sign of trouble or lack of success, they were jumping off that bandwagon. I mean, how have you ever met anybody from Colorado that says anything about sports first? It's did you know we're a mile high and then skiing? That's the only thing they can talk about is so you knew that wouldn't last very long. And who knows how long he's going to be in town there. It's not a matter they're going to run him out. I'm sure he'll leave on his own will because they didn't have any money to pay him according to their athletic director when they hired him. So I definitely don't have any money to pay for a buyout. But I don't see how it's going to work out. The portal's killed him, and you got his kids, telling players to DM him on Instagram if they want to go there and this type of crap. So yeah, it's pretty much about the disaster you'd expect that it was going to be. It's pretty funny to watch, honestly, because they were running their mouths like, just like there's they were going to take over the world, and that didn't happen, and they're about to have a hell of a season this year, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I got a kick out of. I guess he. I didn't read the full context or whatever, but I guess he made some comment about when somebody asked him the new Big 12 that he's going to be involved in. And he's like, this is all they've got or whatever was kind of his deal. And it's like, bro, you just won 3 games in the conference and now, like, come on. Yeah, you're about to find out. Just go ahead and keep thinking that way. That's
well,
fine.
I mean, they're even losing their starting running back, who is basically their whole team last year, is probably going to Kansas State now. So you're going to see him next year, but that's not on your sideline yet. So it's pretty much all going down the toilet. Like, I mean, basically the opposite of what they said is going to happen is going to happen. I don't know what Gus Johnson's going to do with himself, but I guess we'll find something to yell about because he was all in.
Yeah, he's going to have to. You're going to see a lot of Prime hoodies showing up at the Goodwill, I think, is what's going to happen. Yeah. Oh well. We'll watch. We'll find out how that goes. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is, but his team will have the opportunity, I guess, to prove it or not. But funny the way things change, and certainly shows, I guess, too. It is a reflection of our culture now, too. Everybody loves the hot story and the new thing, and once it burns out fast, and that's how we.
Well, I mean, it's fine if it's hot, if it's for a reason, if it's proven on the court or the field or whatever sport we're talking about. When it was just hot air and you're just talking, that's when you don't really have any sympathy when it goes the other way.
Yeah. All right, that's kind of what I had on my schedule here. I know you did. I know you had a couple good nights there, betting wise here this week for folks. So that's always kind of a nice little feather in the cap.
Yeah, it's fun to win a lot more than lose. So yeah, we've been kind of doing some NBA plays here and there. Just a lot of the props usually, but some money lines and decent night in boxing last night. Got a couple of wins. There's a pretty big fight. Canelo will be fighting this weekend, so I'll have something for that. I'm not sure. He's at the point where you almost got to, kind of trying to pick your group of rounds or pick your round win. You can't just go straight up. You're not going to get much value just because, I mean, he hasn't lost forever. Like one time only. Or I guess twice. Bivol beat him, but he was moving up 2 weight classes. So that was that. But I'll credit a couple good fights on the undercard. And then it's a UFC pay-per-view, but it's not great. I mean, we can get in this another day. I know we get short here. It's so watered down that you get these like amazing cards. Like the last two were $299 was pretty good, 300 was real good. Not on paper, but it ended up playing out good in the octagon. But this one is just dog shit. 301 is awful. Like someone like gave it to me for free, I might watch like 2 or 3 fights. I probably wouldn't watch the whole card though. So it's not very good at all. But I'll probably have a fight or two that I'll want to make a play on. But it's nothing, no big. It's not pay-per-view worthy. But that's the state they're in because that's just the model they've built. One pay-per-view per month, regardless of who's fighting. But we'll get something out on that. And of course, like we've been doing the NBA plays or NHL, whatever, throughout the week.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a nice little night that first night. I put out some stuff on the NHL. I had a couple. I ended up bundling them together, and it worked out very well for me that first night. And then it's like, well, yeah, that was cool. And then you don't hit enough of them later on. I hit a few here and there, but that's the way it goes. Like it always kind of evens out. But we'll continue.
It's almost one of the toughest sports, I swear. Like when it comes to like the odds, it's just like it's. I mean, even the just money lines. It's tough because it's so up and down. And I mean, it's really there's done a good job in the league of having like parity, and there's not a lot of separation oftentimes. And whenever I've played that, I've always had fun with that total because those money lines and it's just hard to pick with the up and down series they have.
Yeah, series seem to swing big both ways, one way or the other. So yeah, it's hard each night out to know what's going to happen. But yeah, those totals are sometimes fun, and I think I've been pretty close on what I told you about last time with that Avs Jet series. Certainly has been high scoring, and that proved out true. I said that the Rangers were probably going to beat the shit out of the Capitals. That so far has been very true. So yeah, things have been going kind of the way we saw it, but. Making sure you hit the right things at the right time is always tough. But we'll keep putting them out there for you. So keep following us along at SJM Bets, at Cherokee CP on Twitter. We'll put those picks out for you. And of course, we'd appreciate if you would interact with us in whatever way possible. If you would listen and then, of course, support the show, share it with your friends, like, subscribe, all that good stuff wherever you're listening. It's available on all the various platforms, including on YouTube. So if you want to go there, and we would appreciate any feedback that you give us or suggestions as well along the way. We can continue to try to have some fun with this and hopefully grow, the community that we talk to, and hopefully you're kind of on the same page with some of the things that we like to discuss here on the show. So we'll continue to do that. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next week for some more covers.